Tesla just wrapped its earnings call, and it's now time to separate the signal from the noise. Yes, there are a few rough spots, but behind the headlines, Tesla's clearly in growth mode, sacrificing short-term margins to win the long game. Robotaxi was a major highlight, the long-term vision is intact, and now it's time to double down, not pull back. Today we'll break down the real takeaways and why this moment might look messy, but it's actually Tesla setting up its next big move. We got the bulls here with us today. Jeff Lutz, also known as Mr. Incredible, the Rationable. Tesla Boomer Mama, the Queen, Alexandra Mertz, the Power Bull, and Cern Basher, the Bot Bull. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Herbert.
Hey, Herbert.
Hi, Herbert.
All right, let's get started. So one of the big things we need to start off with, because it is urgent, this is something that's going to be addressed at the shareholders meeting, but we only have a few days for some action that we need to take as retail shareholders. Why don't you kick us off, Alexandra? The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. I enjoy listening to bears.
Looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
The longer term opportunity for Tesla is like no other company that I've ever seen.
Sure, and thank you for giving me that opportunity. So we were all actually confident that the Tesla's board would put this idea of Tesla investing in one way or the other in XAI into the proxy. The proxy coming out, remember, middle of September. And actually on July 13th, Elon had a post where he said, yes, this will be in the shareholder meeting. So we all dropped the ball there and said, okay, that's done. But yesterday it became very clear in a question in the earnings call that is not done yet, that they are waiting for shareholder proposals. Now, shareholder proposals have to follow very clear SEC guidelines. I've written it all out, but what we need is shareholders that are currently holding for $2,000 Tesla shares and have held these 7+ shares for at least 12 months and will hold them until November 6th when the shareholder meeting is. Normally, those people that are writing this shareholder proposal will be invited by Tesla to attend the shareholder meeting. So that's the carrot. And also, obviously, you should believe that you want them to consider an investment into XAI. So what we did, Amy helped, is we set it all up. We set up what you need to do because you need to get a letter from your broker or bank. And this sounds easy, but it's actually more complicated than it is. You have my pinned post where there's a link to a Google Doc that has all the details. Everything is pre-prepared. You can just, log it all in. But the important thing is we're now, when this comes out Friday morning, and you have more or less Friday and latest Monday to get this confirmation from your bank, not just bank statement, but a written letter from the bank that confirms you holding so and so many shares in their account and have held them for 12 months. People that have good relationships with their broker and banks should be easily capable of doing this. And I do believe this information remains only with Tesla. I don't think any of this becomes public, but it is important for them that they have the underlying conviction and proof in SEC format that you are a shareholder. And then once you have that letter from the bank or the broker, you have to send a letter to Tesla. There again, everything is written. You just have to put in your name and your address and a couple of small details, but the letter itself is written. And then you have to mail it to Tesla. The address is given, and also send an email to their shareholder email address. That as well is given. So I just want to mobilize as many people as possible. I can't guarantee we will all be invited, but that's your biggest chance for a ticket to the shareholder meeting. If you want there to be a vote on this potential investment, we have to get there. We have to do all these steps. We've made it as easy as possible for you to do this. So if you feel concerned about this, please follow the steps. Start with the bank. If you have a good relationship with your bank, call your banker. That's the key to getting that letter, because they have to manually do it. Nobody likes doing that. They find 20 excuses to not do them. But that's the easiest way of doing it. And then put the letter on your letterhead and fill out the little gaps that there are, and off it goes. So thank you very much.
Okay, let me just summarize what I heard there. So it's important that on Friday, when this show publishes, we need as many people out there who has at least $2,000 of Tesla shares to help us do this, because Tesla needs shareholders to submit letters requesting from a shareholder proposal that Tesla invest in XAI. And we want as many as possible to do that. Go to Alexandra Mertz at X account at Tesla Boomer Mama. You'll see this post there. There's a link to the Google Doc, and she's basically laid out everything that you need to do, asking what you need to ask your bank to get you a letter, and then what letter you would send to Tesla. And she actually wrote exactly what you should do here. Contact your bank and broker and ask for proof of ownership letter. This needs to be emailed to you before Monday, which is like now. And then on that letterhead, this should be the information that the broker would send to you, basically saying you have proof of ownership of those $2,000 worth of Tesla. And then you would write this proposal, and it's all written up for you. It's all written down here. Here's exact letter that's available for you. She has that already in her Word doc that you can just copy and paste. And so she's asking that we get as many people as possible, right? How many do you need, Alexandra?
Well, I mean, we need for sure one, that is for sure. But I mean, more we have, more solid is the proposal, right? If Tesla can say, look, we did this because 300 shareholders reached out and sent us letters and asked for this to be included, it's covering, I'm not saying the word, but also the board's responsibility if it is bottom up, if it is from the retail shareholders up to the board. So I think that's where we have to be active. I wish we would have started 2 weeks ago. We dropped the ball when we thought this was a done deal. And now we have to do it last minute. Sorry about all that, but here we are.
And this is anybody around the world. It's global, right?
Worldwide, but I mean, I do acknowledge it will be more difficult for people outside of the United States, because typically those banks have then a custodian for the shares in the US. And so they will probably say, oh, I would have to contact the custodian, whatever. So time may be difficult for the worldwide clients. But again, try. Anybody who can try, has the time to try and wants to try, please do try.
And what you'll get is an invite to the shareholder meeting November 6th. That'll be great. Thank you so much, Alexandra. That we had to talk about that right now because this is urgent. We need to get as many people as possible, 300 people, to do this so that we can get this proposal into the shareholder. All right. So the earnings call, Q2, after the day that happened, there is a lot of conversation. People said that it was a bad meeting. There was bad numbers that came out, misunderstandings of the things that was said. But how do you feel about it? Let's start with you, Jeff. I know you've got some thoughts. What was your thinking post earnings call? And you had a few minutes here to give it a few hours to give it some thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a bull or a bear, you had plenty of content but it was definitely a mixed call. There's definitely material changes in terms of what Tesla went through in the business. But if you deconstruct, is kind of the way I'm looking at it, if you deconstruct the PE on the company and you look at it, this is where I think things become a little bit more clear. That it doesn't have 180 or 200 P or whatever P you want to, forward P you want to assign to it based on the auto business. It doesn't have it on the energy business alone. A lot of it is on what's imminent over the next year, which is Robotaxi and the expansion of it. And then later on, I don't think a lot of analysts have actually pulled the bot into, their estimates. So it's actually, there's a decommitment there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But a majority, the point is 80% of the P is on Robotaxi. And the commentary, the commitments, and the forward guidance were fairly bullish in terms of what happened in June and its technical readiness to continue to expand and expand at a rate that's, quite frankly, faster than any known benchmarks out there. And there was a fairly audacious commitment on the call regarding, half of the U.S. population. I know Cern did a nice analysis of that. Regardless, they have very big goals for expansion and doing it rapidly. And I think that is the crux, and of course, doing it safely. And they mention that over and over. And that is really the crux behind Robotaxi, is the rate of expansion and the underlying cost structure once they get there. And So, and that's most of the PE. And that was that. I think that part of it went really well. But there's some definitely material changes. You call them decommitments, you call them whatever you want. Optimus in terms of 5,000 to 10,000 useful bots, or even thousands of them this year. It's not clear if that's happening. It looks like there's more of an emphasis on getting to this next design revision of Optimus, getting that brought up, getting that ramped up, and getting that fully functional, because they believe that'll be a better product. It's probably solving, technical issues, could be solving reliability issues, could be solving supply chain issues. It's really not clear, but it is clear that this version is needed, and it's probably for all of the above and more. And competitively, it doesn't look like there's something out there that's pulling ahead. And remember, to launch this, you need the AI brain, you need the hardware, and you need the ability to manufacture it. And it doesn't appear that there's anyone else pulling away, but at the same time, I think it'd be beyond this, 5 years and 100K a month run rate. The understanding some more of the interim milestones, I think, would be helpful. But I think right now, Tesla is they've a bit of reset the program, and they're really focused on getting this next version. Talked about the new vehicles, and that was an interesting conversation, because so what they're doing with the Model Y, again, using the existing line CapEx, high reuse of the material. Remember, the Model Y is the number one, or within a few thousand units of being the number one selling vehicle in the world. Very low model count inside of the Model Y. That means the supply base gets a very high order volume on a very small number of part numbers coming in from Tesla, which allows them to get leverage and a great cost structure. And now what Tesla's saying is, well, great, I'm not going to just have this one size. I'm going to announce a bigger one. And it's what we saw from Tesla. We haven't seen the next announcement, but a lot of people believe it will be a smaller one. You reduce the mass, you reduce the battery size in the vehicle. You pull these modules over potentially from the next generation vehicles, what's been discussed, these things that consumers don't see, and it may reduce the cost of it as well. But it's this description of it, they're just, taking the car and putting cloth seats in, and that is not what Tesla's been doing for the last 5 quarters. Now, I could see the coordination that's going to be needed, because when this tax bill that was just passed over the last couple of weeks, I think the current working view coming into that bill was the tax credit would be gone by the end of the year, and then that was accelerated fairly recently. So I do think that does have supply chain implications, and they have to deal with that in terms of how they're building the product. But they said they started production on one of the versions, and we'll see where that goes. We'll talk a little bit more about the commentary on that from the call. But again, this whole commentary about new vehicles and its cannibalization, there's no numbers, by the way, behind any of this from any of these claims from people, but in product history, this has been done many times, whether it's auto, whether it's other tech. And the bet that product companies make is there could be some small percentage of cannibalization for much larger total market growth of the entire family. And that's what they looked at. And finally, to me, it was exciting. And I put this out, and people are like, oh, why do you believe Tesla? But on Dojo 2, the commentary around 100,000 H100 equivalents by next year tells me that they're accelerating, tells me that they're catching up. That is larger than the entire install base of Tesla today that they would have of their own solution. And in terms of evaluating the company, Tesla already has the 8 million inference chips out there. Those are Tesla chips. And now they're going to have the training side of it at reasonable, meaningful scale. And they've got, they're a massive customer themselves, and potentially XAI and so forth. So now Tesla can be looked at through the lens of AI training and compute power and designing that and putting that out into the world for these very specialized cases. So for me, mixed call. Most of the evaluations on Robotaxi, material changes in Optimus, I think everybody needs to step back and look at it and understand it. The new vehicles as well, some changes there. Dojo is a very exciting announcement. And again, I think Tesla is building credibility there from where they started to where they are today.
Okay, so it sounds like that the pros outweigh the cons for you. And I do have the video or the audio of when Elon talked about the more affordable model, and some people are misunderstanding that. He said it's just a Model Y, let the cat out of the bag there. Let's dive deeper and find out what we all think he actually did say and what he meant there. Cern, you did a lot of work showing how Tesla today, what you saw in Q2, right, was a bad quarter in terms of the metrics, if you look at a year-over-year decline everywhere as a car company. But you saw it as growth. You saw it as a growth company. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we just did a separate show on that I think will air, I guess, this weekend. But Tesla is making a transition from an auto company that is going through some massive headwinds, right? Whether it's this global automotive market that's been struggling now for a few years, higher interest rates, challenging economic situation in many countries, and then, of course, tariffs, and then the big bill in terms of taking away the EV tax credit and all this stuff. There's so much in flux. It doesn't just affect Tesla, but the whole industry. And so that's a massive headwind. And then, of course, on top of that, in the short term, they've got to spend so much money on AI and the infrastructure for that. And by the way, the market for talented AI engineers just got more expensive, right? If Meta's handing out $100 million bonuses, sign-on bonuses, you got to believe that Tesla's feeling some of that pain as well in terms of attracting talent to the team. And that may have been evidenced by the SG&A going up a little bit. So in the short term, there's a lot of things to worry about. And if you are an investor that's so focused on this quarter, next quarter, the next 9 months, next 12 months, you would probably be left sort of, saying this is not a great situation. But if you are looking out a little bit longer and not that much further, there's a lot to be excited about. And the point, Herbert, that we discussed on our other show was, in order for Tesla to get to that bright new future, they have to make these investments. And if they don't, they will never get there. But it's that messy middle. It's going across that chasm where all those alligators are that could kill you. You just have to go through there as fast as you can. And the quicker they get to the other side, the better off we're all going to be. And the good news is that Tesla is going, as far as I can tell, full speed ahead on that. While Wall Street and many analysts are kind of squawking about the quarter and the near-term stuff, Tesla, to their credit, are doing what they need to do, in my opinion, to get to that brighter future as fast as possible. And we're left sort of, frustrated about the earnings call. And by the way, I'm as frustrated as anybody. I went through the call last night to put together a transcript. And I have access to a service that gave me a transcript, but it was so bad because there were so many words that were very difficult to understand.
Do you have quarter? Because I have the same. Yesterday I was so close to actually canceling it because it's not worth the money.
Yeah,
but I mean,
it's part of a separate service that I have.
Quarter.
Yeah,
but it's not the problem of quarter, right? It's just difficult to comprehend what they have said.
It's Elon is great, but sometimes it's very hard to follow what he says. He changes direction on a speech many times, and it's hard to sort of catch some of the words kind of said, as he flips to another thought. And then there's two other individuals in the company, the CFO and Ashok, that they're great, but they're difficult to understand. I had to go through some segments 4 or 5 times to pick up the words, and there even were some segments I couldn't figure out what they said. I just couldn't do it. And so that adds to the frustration because we're trying to gather information from these executives, and with the sound quality or just with how they speak, it's just very difficult to do that. And so I think that adds to people's frustration. And then the final thing I would say is that we have many investors in this company that are used to investing in public companies that are very polished, very smooth about all this stuff. And we've got Tesla that tends to be a little bit looser. There's frustrations there, but there's also this element of whether you like it or not, you're invested in a venture capital fund right now, a publicly traded venture capital fund that isn't necessarily as forthcoming about some of these new things as we would like to see. We would like more information about what's going on, and that is frustrating. But
I actually disagree a little bit, Cern. We sometimes want a bit more information, but sometimes we also would like less. So at some questions, I felt like they were going into a rabbit hole. I was like, oh, don't do it. And actually, you had the CFO trying to calm down Elon, but Elon went there. So you had a couple of interactions that were frustrating. And I completely agree with you. Once you have the transcript, once you let it settle, once you get that noise out of it, there's actually lots of good progress. And I'm glad Jeff pointed out to a lot of it. But the frustration is real. When I hear the CFO opening with, okay, well, those that still want the 7,500 were in July, get your orders in because we're running short of supply. I nearly fell off the chair. I mean, that was like 5 minutes into the earnings call. Why? I mean, if that is the case, why? And I'm sure Jeff can explain to us why the situation can occur. But that doesn't help me, right? With my short-term issues, and I shouldn't have the short-term issues. That's probably the main reason. But it just is frustrating.
Yeah. When I read the analyst notes, it didn't look like there were price target upgrades. There were a lot of just maintains. And there wasn't anything I saw that was a material change, like people just turning south on the company. So I kind of think of the 3-day rule. I think of, emotions post an earnings call. And I just want to, maybe go through the transcript again, like when there's a clearer version and just understand it. But the analyst community seems to, I think for everything we've discussed, the analyst community is really started the shift, towards like the company's valued on something else, and they're hanging less and less on, on units. So again, we know that the units, the revenue, the EPS is needed, the free cash flow is needed to fund the future of the business. Everybody knows that. The gross margins improved; they were ahead of plan, but. I was surprised, actually, I was pleasantly surprised to see that most of the analysts are kind of seeing through this, say, look, this is where the PE is. They talked through Robotaxi and, and we feel confident in their ability to scale. I think they're really starting to move towards this. So now the question is where do we go between now and the end of the year? What does it look like in the auto and the energy business? The energy business is under a little bit of I would say there's some risk obviously involved with this transition to U.S. cells and how to deal with that. How does the auto business do the rest of the year? And then can they converge? Is there going to be a meaningful change on Optimus? Do they converge and do they demonstrate that by the end of the year? And maybe some of the mystery will be clear, like this is what we did. This is why we did it. And oh, by the way, we've got this material in order and we're going to be ramping this up in 2026.
Mm-hmm. I looked at 11 institutional analysts, and like you said, they're either neutral, but they kept their price targets, or a few of them raised their price target, and a few of them were still overweight. But the important thing is that all of them started to use the words real world AI. So at least they're saying those words, they're understanding the story, they're starting to buy in that this is something happening. Baby steps. But one of the biggest misunderstandings, I think we had Bloomberg article, we had Gary Black say that, oh no, Tesla as a car company is doomed because they're just rolling out another Model Y, just a regular Model Y that is decontented, right? Stripped down Model Y. And it's because Elon said this. He said, and I'll play the audio so you can tell me what you think he actually said. But he said, it's just a Model Y. I let the cat out the bag there. And I think some people took that to mean, oh, it's just a Model Y. So let's play it.
Update us on what we should expect this thing to actually look like.
Well, we won't get into the looks because
it's like a Model Y. Yeah. Just lift the cat out of the bag there. Dancing cat that can sing and dance, but it can talk and sing and dance. Though that's the cool part. I mean, the fundamentally the biggest obstacle remains that people just don't have enough. Some people don't. The desire to buy the car is very high. Just people don't have enough money in their bank account to buy it. Literally, that is the issue. Not a lack of desire, but a lack of ability. So the more affordable we can make the car, the better. I think it's going to be. It will be a very big deal when people can release their car to the fleet and have it earn money for them, which, like I said, I feel confident in saying that'll happen next year in the US at least. And in the US, we're legally allowed, appropriate disclaimers. And that'll make the affordability dramatically greater. Just like, if you have an Airbnb and you can rent out your home when you're not there, or rent out a guest room or guest house or something like that, the affordability of your home is much greater.
You can hear Weber suffering, Right?
Can I address what I think is really happening here? And hearing it again was helpful too. What Tesla can't have this quarter, they have the $7,500 credit. They have supply lined up to produce those cars, as many as they can. They think they talked a little bit of that. What they can't have is this. There's a question coming on the call. The timing is now clear that it's now Q4 for this next vehicle. They can't have the thing out there of like, there's another Tesla coming. It may look different, it may have whatever, and it's going to be at a lower cost. They can't freeze up they don't want to Osborne their current business. Tesla and Elon are very sensitive to that. That's point number one. Point number two is, I think they're running the playbook that I don't want to say that I've been talking about for the last 6 or 8 months, which they've already announced a larger version of the Model Y that allows them to use the same line CapEx and just adjust settings of the robots. They're not doing meaningful retooling on the line. They did that earlier in the year for the main Model Y. And I believe they may do a compact version as well. I think that's what's coming. So if you're Tesla, you don't want to freeze. You don't want to Osborne the current quarter. That's the worst thing you can do, because then you've got material that you can't convert, and it's either stuck in channel, or it's stuck in your factory, or you own it and it's at your suppliers. And that is death to a business. So you can see how sensitive they are. They've got 20 or so days of inventory in channel, and they have very low inventory in their factory. They're very sensitive to this. So they got to flush out what they have. Now that they've supplied the timing for the new vehicle, they can't freeze up the marketplace. So I actually think he jumped in there to kind of just say, like, if you're buying a Model Y today, it's another Model Y. But we already know the longer version is going to be a different car, different seating configuration, so forth. And we'll see what the smaller version, potentially, they haven't announced that, by the way, if there's what the next version has.
Sorry, my question to you, Jeff, now is, do you think it is just another Model Y with the same length and width, the affordable model? Just personally, what do you think?
I think that is something that they could release in the future, but they wouldn't have been working on it for 5 quarters and talking about it in 5
Correct.
different earnings decks for 5 quarters. That would have been something they would have done with a very small team, working with a few suppliers to push out into the marketplace. But because they did that with the Model 3. We saw them do that with the Mexico Model 3.
Yeah.
So
no announcement.
they
it just showed up in its cheaper Model 3. Yeah.
So they could still do that. But the point is I do think that they're working on a smaller version of the vehicle. That's going to help them in cost. It's going to help them in a number of different areas. And it's going to serve, the most important thing is, it's going to serve a different segment of people that just don't want a car as big as Model Y is a fairly, big vehicle. So
perfect size, yeah.
And there's
the way I interpret some of this is that, remember last earnings call, you had, was it Lars kind of say something about this? And it was like this sense that I got was that they were a little bit embarrassed, because if you are Tesla and you're creating a vehicle with a particular segment in mind, you want to design it from first principles for that particular segment. They're a little embarrassed. They go, yeah, we just decided we're just going to take the Model Y. We're going to make a longer version. We're going to make a smaller version. We're going to make a compact version, but it looks the same as a Model Y. Like, kind of like the front looks the same. Now, you know what I mean? That's where I get the sense. Yeah, it's the Model Y, but it is a compact. I think it is a compact, not a stripped down version. Who here in the panel thinks differently? Nobody, right?
I answered, I think they can do both.
Yeah,
I think they can do both is my point.
Yeah. Okay.
Herbert, my point with this, or my thoughts with this, is that we are witnessing this messy middle of this transition from an auto company that cares about what consumers want and develops and designs cars to meet consumer needs, to an autonomous company that is going to be selling cars into its own fleet. At that point, consumer needs and wants and wishes secondary.
Yeah.
You need to produce the vehicles that need to move people. How many rides have 2 people? How many rides have 3? How many rides have kids? You have to deal with that, and that's the issue about their production and where they need to meet the needs of their fleet. And selling to consumers then becomes an afterthought. If you want to buy a Model Y that looks like this because we use that for our fleet and that's the best vehicle, then fine, you can have that too if you're willing to pay the price. This is the early signs of that transition from no longer needing to sell cars to people.
You are right, Cern. And that's where the comment comes from Weber, where he said, we're not going to do much incentives this quarter. It's a 7,500 and we may run out of cars. So you better get your order in, which is exactly that attitude where they are like, well, it is what it is. There's not going to be, much referral credit or much add-ons. 3 miles or whatever it is, you may actually not even get a car anymore if you're too late to get it, which is an attitude of somebody who doesn't care is not the wrong way, but it's not a priority anymore to serve a car to anybody who just wants it now at a low price. Well, affordability is an issue because you want affordability for your own production line as well, right? You want the highest ROI on the cars in your own fleet as well.
But just because Tesla can build a car, let's say for $20,000 to pick a number, doesn't mean they're going to sell it for 25. If autonomy makes the value of that vehicle worth 80, then that's the new price. And I think that people will need to wake up to this because there may be a window of opportunity here to buy a Tesla at a decent price because 12 months from now, if they're soaking up vehicles into their fleet, they're not going to be interested to sell you a vehicle for $40,000.
Or not at all anymore.
Or not
Remember
at all.
my thing. I still think in 2030 they're not selling anything anymore.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say in all this is they have reportedly up close to 2 or 3 million units of, I would call it available but not activated capacity in their factories, and they've got production capacity somewhere reported between 2.3 and 2.7, depending on if you actually look in the earnings deck or so forth. And what are they going to build this year? 1.6. What do we think the number is coming in at? So those numbers are not supposed to be equal. Nobody designs factory footprints and utilization for 100%, but you want it to be at least above 80% for your cost structure. So remember, they still have a problem to solve. Selling cars is still an important thing, but and I agree with all the points here, as Robotaxi has advanced, I think they're coming under this realization, like this is technically working. And now we honestly have to get through this regulatory hurdle and really scale it. But they still want to sell, they still want to build out the fleet and still have these lower cost versions out there.
All right. So, as a Tesla investor, what I got out of this call was Robotaxi. That and the bot are the two things I'm always very aware of. I was disappointed to hear that they're still going to do Optimus 3 as a prototype this year, but scale production next year. That was a pushback. But Robotaxi was pulled forward. As far as I was concerned, I couldn't think of anything else I would have wished to have heard or learned that would have been better than what I heard yesterday. And I don't know why more people aren't freaking out about what they heard yesterday. So number one, it's about to grow bigger, faster than any competitor. Ashok himself said 2 weeks, that's when the next expansion of the area could be. He, at a later point in the conversation, he said that he sees us in 10x. It's possible. I think somebody pointed out that there's 42 square miles right now in the current geofence. Well, 10x of that would be 420. So it would be kind of funny that Tesla did that with that funny number. But regardless, they're going to do that. They talked about, this part here, I don't think any of us believes it's, going to happen. But Elon aspirationally said he sees autonomous ride hailing in half of the US by end of 2025. He said technically possible, but, we're not sure about regulatory. But that's his confidence that by the end of this year, he sees it at that point already spread across. But expansion to Florida, Arizona, California, Nevada, those were new. So we've got Texas already happening. They talked about California, right? That they say that the regulatory there is actually, cooperating, and that they see that Ashok even said that we might just go ahead and launch it with a driver in the driver's seat. The rules in California is different than other places where you do need to first put 500 or 50,000 hours or something like that, some number, 50,000 hours, something like that, driving with a driver in the seat. So they might do that first, but that's imminent. Arizona, it looks like it's moving, and Nevada. So those four, and Florida. So that's good news. Here's the 20 metro areas. Omar pointed out, if you truly believe this, 50% of the population being served, what's the likelihood that they would launch it? That's very low. That's not likely going to happen. But this is the sentence that I thought was the most important sentence as a Tesla investor. So this idea that when they validated for Austin and they had all those LiDAR cars everywhere, people thought, oh my God, that means they can't scale. They'll have to do that in every city as they grow. They pointed out here, no, this is not location specific. The things we did for Austin is going to be distributed to all of our cars and will allow us to scale to other cities quickly with marginal investment. And then the final thing was FSD. What they're doing in Robotaxi is much better than what I have in my car today. That will be updated. He says that when it's still on track, that in next quarter, they will be able to send us the 3 times parameter increase, or is it the 4 times parameter increase? And then in the call, Ashok talked about a 10x parameter increase that can fit in our hardware 4 cars. So even if hardware 5, AI 5 has been delayed by a year, if my AI 4 car can do a 10x parameter increase, that's like the chances that Robotaxi is not solved just fell dramatically. So for me, I mean, what more could you ask for Robotaxi?
And what was that sentence when he said half of the population will have access to what? What was that exact sentence?
Yeah, I wasn't prepared. I cut. I do have the audio of him, and it was just when he started. That's where I cut it. So
it's essentially half the population would
available.
Be technically
Autonomous
ready.
Robotaxi will be available. Okay.
Here's the transcript as I went through it last night. And I think we'll probably have autonomous ride hailing in probably half of the population of the US by the end of the year. That's at least our goal, subject to regulatory approvals.
So Florida, Nevada, Phoenix, of course, Austin and the Bay Area, maybe more of California, but I still don't get to 160 million.
You need 165 million. Mm-hmm. And if it's Texas, California, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, that's 103 million. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at other states that are autonomous vehicle friendly, in order to get to 165 million, you would need New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, and North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Sounds like we're talking election result again.
We are, aren't we?
Yeah.
But we have red states and blue states in there.
Swing states. We need the autonomy swing states to, yeah.
Yeah, I think the key is technically ready. So that means the system architecture works and they can deploy Tesla people in all these cities to do the appropriate oversight and appropriate readiness. That's operational readiness. That's key. That means they're investing. That means they're moving forward. Yeah.
We've already seen job openings months ago for Las Vegas and other, I think Phoenix. Did we see some from Miami? I'm not sure if I recall that or not. But anyway, there's been job openings.
Florida was really new yesterday. Florida was the first time I heard about it. And London was the first time in that image as well.
Yeah, for Tesla, if the data was bad, they would not be putting the dollars towards this. That's to me is the key takeaway. They're hiring these people, they're ramping up, and they made a public statement on the earnings call. It doesn't mean that, of course, are some things audacious? Of course they are, but we see it in the hiring data. We see it in the requisitions posted. So they're actually putting their money where their mouth is on this.
Yeah, and then FSD, right? You talked about blocking in China, soon in Netherlands and Europe. We had the Thomas Drew, the Tesla executive, the highest Tesla executive in Australia, say that there's no blockers for that they're going to have FSD rolled out there. FSD is rolling out. Okay. So one of the comments he made, he said, okay, it's just a Model Y. I let the cat out of the bag. Then he flipped the script and he started talking about this car's going to drive itself. what was the other points he made about the fact that
Earn money. I mean, for him, the whole thing
it's going to earn you
affordable,
money?
It's going to earn
Yeah.
you money. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know what I mean? Like it's like this thing where we're selling cars and you're comparing my car with all the other competitors out there, and you're going to lose the 7,500. You're going to have these headwinds coming up. But he's going, yeah, I planned ahead. We're not just selling you a car anymore. This car drives itself. It's going to make you money. That you can sleep in the car while you're doing it. That's the value prop. Why wouldn't the car sales just skyrocket after we roll that out? Regardless of form factor, like Cern is saying. In fact, wouldn't it be the opposite, guys? Wouldn't you then, if you can afford a car, why wouldn't you get the bigger car? Because you want to sleep in it, you want to have, work in it.
Well, it depends where you are. If you're in a very urban environment, you don't want a huge car because it's difficult to park, and a garage in New York, you certainly don't want it.
It's going to park itself.
But I mean, even daughter if it parks itself, it's only so small.
Yeah, my daughter pays for the monthly FSD, but she has a hardware 3 specifically for the parking. And I'm not pushing her to use FSD yet because it's the hardware 3. If it was hardware 4, I would definitely AI4. I'd be pushing her, telling her.
I never park myself anymore. I'm so happy when I understood how to park now.
Well, while we're on this topic, I think this update that's going out is the software update. I know everybody doesn't have it yet, but this grok in the vehicle, I for a first rev, I was very pleasantly surprised at how well it was integrated, how low latency that the system was running. It's almost conversational back and forth. And even they're starting to marry these things together. So now the interior lights, you can sync them with music, which I think at some point will be synchronized with speech, and almost feel like the whole cabin, the experience is alive. And I don't underestimate this, especially when they are able to start showing people this. I know there's an issue, and they brought it up on the call with FSD awareness, which I found bizarre, of half the people haven't ever tried it, even though it's been offered in free trials. But Tesla continues to make meaningful improvement, though, in this in-vehicle experience. It's really like nothing else. And if you show people, we talked about this before with FSD, but you show them now this grok in-vehicle experience, the lighting, everything they're doing, it's really different. It's really unique. That's all I can say. I can't wait for everyone else to see it.
There was one part of the call yesterday where Dan Levy asked, he said, can you just talk about the gating factors to enabling that and what timeline we should expect on personally owned vehicles in the Robotaxi network? And Elon's response, and I quote, "We haven't really thought hard about that, but we need to make sure it works when the vehicles are fully under our control." So I'm on two minds about that. Elon's been talking about this for years, and now he's saying we haven't really thought hard about that. It's like, you've had all this time and you haven't thought about it? But
I misheard the question.
It's also encouraging for me as a shareholder, because I want Tesla to have company-owned vehicles in the fleet. That's going to be more value to the stock than if they share it with personal vehicle holders. But I thought his answer was kind of curious. And I guess, Jeff, if he misunderstood the question, then maybe that makes sense.
I wouldn't be the first time I misunderstood a question, but when I heard it, it sounded like the question was, when are vehicles from other brands, like any other vehicle, when can they be added to the fleet? And I think that Cole gets into FSD integration with competitors, but I just totally misheard it, because that's the way. And when I heard Elon's response, I thought he answered it in that way of like, well, first we're just trying to get it to work. The first sentence of the question was, and this is what Dan started out talking. He said, "Elon, you've talked about the opportunity to put non-Tesla owned vehicles into the Robotaxi network. Can you just talk about the gating factors to enabling that and what timeline we should expect on personally owned vehicles in the Robotaxi network?" Yeah. When you read the transcript, it's clear. When I heard it, I didn't hear the owned part. I heard non-Tesla vehicles, and I'm like, oh, that's not happening anytime soon.
And maybe that's what Elon heard too. We don't know.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
But
because he spoke earlier about the Airbnb model, right? I mean, so I think for Tesla owners, that is still in full play.
I think people made too big of a deal saying, I can't believe Elon just said that he hasn't given any thought on personally owned Teslas being part of the network. Like you said, Alexandra, all over the place. He kept saying you can add or subtract your car. And then right after he said that, what happened? Ashok and others came in and they said, oh, of course they've given a thought. In order for you to put in your car, it needs to be validated, right? It needs to be checked. It needs to be make sure that the tire thread is not too low. It's got to go through some checklist. They've given it some thought already that this is not so easy as just adding a car. We need to have, just like Airbnb, if you want to put your house in, somebody needs to do an inspection, just make sure everything's, signed up right paperwork. They've given it a lot of thought. I'm not concerned about that.
I just thought it was a strange response from Elon initially there. It caught me off guard.
So what are you concerned about? Because you said, I'm not concerned about that. You're obviously not concerned about the Robotaxi. Was there anything that was of your concern, Herbert? Where did you have any uneasy feeling?
I mean, my point simply being, as a Tesla investor, the one thing that I really had my ears opened up for was Robotaxi. That is make or break the company in terms of, does it work? And as far as I'm concerned, I heard everything correct. The other things, of course, is the bot. That's the one thing that I'm most concerned about, that it's been delayed. I've been, as you know, the last month or two, I've been already doing shows with Scott Walter. We already have been warning that this particular planetary roller screw is very difficult to make. You need 15 of them per bot, and it takes 45 minutes to make each of these. They're very complex. You need very specialized machinery. That's why we already expected that there's going to be a delay in production, and he confirmed it, that we're still in prototype stage for Optimus 3, and it'll be scaled next year. But then he said, right, every part we have to make our own. So being Tesla, they're not going to outsource it to this other company and then be, stuck by their bottleneck. This is such an important part. They're going to make it themselves, and they're going to reinvent it. Maybe they brought in some SpaceX experts, whatever, right? They've got all the talent they need. So, it's one of those things where you go, oh, damn it, I was expecting 5,000 bots this month. But what matters more is the way he tried to position it, right? We are building this the right way. It's going to take us longer, but once we build it the right way, this thing's going to work and it's going to be successful.
Yeah. And
I'm
I mean,
okay with that.
I could actually hear Wall Street scream when he said, well, I can't give a prediction for 12 months, but I can give one for 5 years or 60 months. I think that's how he phrased it. I mean, that is the worst for any of those PE people, right? Oh my God, where is my number where I can put in my little Excel? Now I have a 5-year number. I don't do 5-year numbers. I only do 18 months numbers, right? And then I bring it down to 3 months number. Anyway, so I mean, it made me smirk. I actually don't mind either, because as you know, we've always said 2025 is difficult. 2026 will slowly ramp, and then we're there, and you better hold for 3 to 5 years. And this just confirmed it. But I found him particularly prudent and not Elon-like in all deadlines. I think he put them out as much as possible. As I said yesterday, and I want to reiterate this because some people may have not seen us, there is this conspiracy theory out there that this may be linked to his new comp plan, because he just wants to make sure on one side that the stock price is as low as possible, and that the goals are as far out as possible to make it for him attainable to reach. We'll have all these answers in 1.5 short months once we have the proxy in our hands. But until then, it may be a little bit rocky, and you have to second guess some of his intentions.
Go
ahead.
What I'm struggling with is in January regarding the bot, or actually regarding the whole company. He said an epic 2026 and a ridiculous 27, a ridiculous 28. What's changed in 6 months?
Well, he didn't say that that's not the case anymore, did he? He didn't.
Well, he's talking about, rough Q4 and then Q1 to Q2 next year. That's not the start of an epic year. No,
but he said he's multiple earnings calls now. He said that the Robotaxi revenue earnings will be impactful, will move the needle second half of next year. And he confirmed that again.
Yep.
That hasn't changed.
But is that an epic 2026 if Robotaxi is just starting to be material in Q4 of 26?
No, I think what changed is these 6 months been tough on him and on Tesla. And we're now in these crucial weeks to set up his new compensation plan. So there is just the two a very current event, the compensation plan, and a very trying 2025 behind us, first half of 2025. So these two together, voila, your earnings call.
And I guess
And
tariffs
that's why I don't,
and credits taken
of
away
course,
doesn't
of
help.
course, politics and
Yep.
everything. I mean, it's been a tough time, but I do believe we'll have him in a better mood after November 6th.
And also the rash of executive departures, from the time that Elon came back to the earnings call. I don't think it was all a coincidence. I don't think they're all, leaving on their own accord either. So, yeah, that was to me is a little bit of a, that happens, right? Executive departures happen, but there was a concentration of them in a shorter period of time.
Especially on sales, and sales have been tough. I mean, there's no point, sugarcoating it. And I completely agree with you, Cern. Does this matter in the medium and long term? No, it does not. But in the immediate, he had to clean up. Once he was really back at Tesla, he cleaned house as he does from time to time. And it's always rough. It's always rough.
What do you guys think is going to happen to the stock price? So we talked about 2026 is going to be, it's middle half of next year, 2026. That's when you start seeing meaningful Robotaxi contribution to earnings. So I saw a post today, I think by Farzad, just writing down everything. And he said, don't expect the stock price to move until the end of next year. However, but that goes against the fact that if Robotaxi actually is launched and spread out by the end of this year to, even if it was just 4 states, even if it was just 2,000 cars, even if it was just unsupervised FSD available for 2 states for personal use, that could be enough to have, people getting ahead of actual earnings impacting, because they can map that out because they're expanding it, right? So do you guys think that, stock's going to be dead flat for the next year? Or do you think that, it could actually still move by the end of this year, despite a really bad Q4, Q1, and Q2 earnings?
I mean, first of all, Q3 is not going to be bad. Q3, actually, we should see higher car sales. The one thing I've learned of holding now 5.5 years an all-in Tesla portfolio is you have no means of predicting when it does the big jumps, right? I mean, what happens at the moment, 5% up and down, or even 8% down, whatever, doesn't even move me anymore. We've gone through this stuff often enough to not have emotions anymore. But the moment the stock really goes up by 100 points or even more, are very unpredictable. You cannot say it will be the earnings call of July 2026 and that's when it will happen. It's impossible, because it could be something, very, really impactful, like, Florida announcing that now unsupervised is available all over Florida, and no means of knowing when that is going to come. And there you are. So just with a stock like this, just be prepared to hold for at least 3 to 5 years. Otherwise, you're going to really suffer, because the same can happen on the downside, right? I mean, how did we get from 480 down to 300 again? It wasn't just nice, right? And many painful moments brought us here. And like I said, if you have the longer vision and believe that this stock is going to double and triple and more, you can sit this out. But if you are really, I don't know how the short-term traders do it. I actually admire these people, because having covered calls or having short-term trading on Tesla, I think this is nearly impossible.
Herbert, I would say it's all due to the Robotaxi rollout. And if they roll out to multiple cities, that shows then that that's scalable, right? You don't have to have maybe just safety monitors in every vehicle or whatever it is, whatever they can show that this suddenly is scalable. Right, because a lot of people believe that right now it's not scalable, that they have to map every street and they have to have somebody in every car and all this stuff. Absent that, another great strategy would be just dominate Austin, Texas. Show us that you can cover the entire metro area and show us that you can destroy ride hail in one city. And for me, that would do it. So if they can't rapidly scale into Florida and Nevada and California and all that as they would like to, just dominate Austin, just own the entire market. That would be a very strong signal.
Yeah, I do think it comes down to Robotaxi, and I do think markets look ahead. They're not going to wait for when they're going to look at the relative growth. That's what they're going to look at, and they're going to, at that point, if that's happening, then they'll re-rate it. So, yeah, markets are going to look ahead. They're not going to wait. I think this is where retail and Wall Street. This is where there's probably some better acumen in terms of Wall Street and how to read it versus retail. But retail kind of tends to just stay in it versus trying to trade in and out. So at least some do, some don't. Retail is not a monolith, by the way. But yeah, this is where you really need to understand how markets read things versus how your emotions do. So
let's do some quick fire questions. That's been popular these days. So this question I answered, I haven't heard you guys answer it, right? What was the most important news of the earnings call? I said I felt that it was Robotaxi, and there was a couple lines that I thought were very important. How about you guys, Alexandra?
I mean, what keeps me the most busy, is now to prepare the shareholder proposal and then everything else that needs to be done for the call. So my important news was really, what to action now, which is silly because that will be forgotten in a week. So I haven't concentrated on what of all the rest was my most important news. But there was nothing in there that put in question my medium and long-term scenario. Nothing, absolutely nothing. There was, there was an immediate action that I had to take, and there was like an uncomfortable feeling. But we have said 6 months ago after the earnings call in January, beware 2025 is going to be a real mess. And it is a real mess. It is messy. So I didn't feel there was anything, new and important that put anything in question.
Jeff, do you want to go next?
Robotaxi, it's probably 80% of the PE, and you can tell that they have the data that says it works. That's why they're hiring people in all the cities, and they're technically ready to expand, and now they've got to work through the malaise of regulatory.
And Cern?
I agree with what you said, Herbert. So I'll share with you what my 3 AI assistants said. Grok said the successful launch of Robotaxi service in Austin with fully autonomous customer deliveries from the factory. Grok seems to think there were multiple deliveries. Gemini says the most surprising thing was the abrupt repeal of the $7,500 US EV tax credit. That was news to Gemini, leading to an explicit warning from the company about a demand cliff and potential rough quarters ahead. So that's what that analyst thought. And then my Chat GPT analyst said the most surprising thing was that Tesla's Robotaxi service is already live with no driver in Austin, delivering real customers far earlier than most expected.
32 days later.
Yeah.
Well, this is, I think you asked the question, what is the most surprising news as opposed to what's the more important news?
Yeah, I did. So that wasn't quite the right language.
Yeah. What was the most important for you? Stop relying on your AI analyst.
No, I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
No,
they're all wrong, right?
Maybe it all centers around Robotaxi. That's the near term, medium term driver of the company is rolling out Robotaxi. A very cautious rollout in Austin that most of the world took as a joke, particularly when they expanded the geofenced area. No mainstream media covered that, right? Now they have an opportunity in the next couple of weeks to maybe 10x it. Joe Techmeyer suggested they should make it into the shape of a Cybertruck. Yeah. That would be cool. Just to show the capability that they can design this geofenced area any way they want to would be awesome. So it's just the progress on that. And I think that's kind of exciting that we get hopefully updates on that every couple of weeks.
What was the most disappointing news of the earnings call? Like they pushed back Optimus, right? Prototype only this year. They pushed back AI 5 to 2027. What were the other things? You guys.
AI 5 didn't matter to me. I found that interesting
because it was paired with the comment that Dojo and AI5 will basically be converging into one thing. That was very exciting.
Well, and they said they could 10x the parameter count of AI4. I just don't think as people on the outside of the company, we understand where their current architecture tops out and where the new one is needed to kick in. I think we're making assessments based off of what they say, but I think it sounds like they can get more out of AI4, and maybe they paired those two together for a reason because they for some reason delayed the tape out of AI5. But I thought it was the robot. your question was, Herbert,
Disappointing.
the disappointing news.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the
disappointing.
Optimus push to me, not totally surprised given how difficult this development is, but yeah, that was.
For me, it was Hardware 3 owners. I think they're left stranded. It is clear now that any opportunity for them to upgrade is once Hardware AI4 is where it is supposed to be. And I just can recommend Hardware 3 owners who want to use their cars in the fleet and who want to fully be unsupervised FSD to change the cars now. There is no point waiting. And you honestly should put your orders for Model Y in as soon as possible, profit from the 7,500. And there will be buyers who are not sensitive to Hardware 3 versus AI4, less educated people. There's still value to your cars, and I think you shouldn't wait.
Cern, did you answer that question? Most disappointing news.
Yeah, I think for me it centers around Optimus, though again, I don't really believe it. I think that Elon was massively sandbagging. He's consistently talked about how they're going to scale this thing like nothing's ever been scaled before. And so for him just to say it was going to be 100,000, a month and 5 years from now is ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that when he announces his shareholder plan, right, his compensation plan for the next one, then he'll go, I'm going to make that instead of 100,000 per month, it's going to be $1 million per month by 2030.
Yeah.
Ta-da! All of a sudden I can do it. But I mean, he can do it, but that he sets him up to be able to say something big like that, right?
Maybe, although some of us remember what he said 6 months ago, but yeah.
I mean, we do remember, and nobody else remembers. I mean, it's actually funny how the headlines today are so car-centered, and all these other things that, if you're a good journalist, you should have picked up and really dig into. And there's nobody. Yeah,
for me, the Dojo 2 equivalent, I keep going back to that, and people question it, and you can question anything you want, but they put 8 million inference chips out of their own design, and they have 8 to 10% of their training load happening now. So I think they're scaling, and it's a question of when they converge. I think there's two things. I think people are always trying to compare it to NVIDIA, but they're going after a different segment in terms of what they're training on and what they're training for. And there may be some real meaningful convergence, and Tesla will be looked at again. It's already moving away from just being this pure auto company. The energy component added, now it's the Robotaxi component, and it's clearly getting PE credit for what they're doing in Robotaxi. But if now this Dojo component is added in, I think it gives them pricing leverage, and it gives them, again, they're now, inference and training. They're an inference and training supplier. I think it's a big deal. If XAI buys Dojo, then that becomes a line item, a whole new business model that Cern, you would need to create a whole new page for, graphs and charts for. And again, if I'm Elon, I'm not going to put a massive commit out, because these are the things that massively swing. Robotaxi enough will do it, and I think they were appropriately bullish on that. But Optimus and the work they're doing on Dojo, I mean, those things could definitely make it go nutty. So undercommit at this point, hopefully overachieve in the future.
Yeah, I did a post probably a year and a half ago now about all the times he mentioned Dojo as the ultimate joker for Tesla. And and I can find that back because I mean, the thing is with Elon, sometimes you have to dig back 5 years to understand where we're going, and Dojo is clearly one of them. And he always said it's a complete wild card. It may as well not be the what we all hope for. And I think it was more complicated up to this point than they thought. But now,
they're ready to scale.
Given the capacity and the money they're throwing into it.
Yeah, they're scaling.
Because one thing with Tesla that is for sure is they are the leanest and meanest spenders. Nobody manages their supplies and their costs the way they do. I mean, Jeff can talk hours about it. And the fact that Dojo now will have the capacity that they're talking about is just unheard of.
And what if this, we talked about, it could be a big Tesla order, obviously a big XAI order. ordering from yourself. It's ultimately what's happening. But what if we've always talked about FSD and licensing and other robotaxi services. And what if it because it's curated to video training, what if it becomes a lower cost solution to being able to do real world AI as it relates to vehicles and potentially bots? And all of a sudden now they're a supplier to the world of these two massively big and growing segments. Again, there's a lot of space between where we are today and getting to that. But this went from something with a less than 10% chance of success to being 10% of their training workload now to being 100,000 H100 equivalents next year to, again, could this be a meaningful supplier in the industry for these curated use cases, which are massively growing?
Okay. I'm going to skip the next question. I think in the next stock catalyst, we've answered that. But Master Plan 4, he talked about it. He will reveal that in the annual shareholder meeting. You guys have any thoughts on this?
It's all about bots.
Terawatt hour compute.
Yeah.
Energy too.
Didn't we?
Yep.
Didn't we have a master plan 4, which was about all the rare earth materials and all those things in that? No, it wasn't 3. Was it 3?
3 was all about energy, sustainable energy, how to get there.
With all these huge numbers that were not only Tesla numbers?
Yeah,
Was that master plan 3? Okay, sorry. Then I'm mixing that up. Okay, so now we're master plan 4. And he's presenting that. I didn't catch that. He's presenting that at the shareholder meeting on November 6th.
I thought I heard that. What'd you guys?
I just heard he said he's working on it. I didn't hear that he's presenting it at what date. I just know they're going to have dancing bots at the shareholder meeting.
Yes, it's going to be rock and roll.
He said, Herbert, I'm working on a new master plan to articulate that to the Tesla team.
Yeah,
He didn't.
But at the shareholder meeting, right?
Didn't say that. He says he's talking about a fundamental transformation of a company from a pre-autonomy world to a post-autonomy world, and I'm working on a new master plan to articulate that to the Tesla team.
Okay.
Herbert's inserting words into the transcript like someone else right now.
I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought that's what I heard.
Herbert, are you sending that over to Bloomberg?
So Master Plan 4, guys. I think, well, the reason I guess I'm thinking that this might happen is that it makes sense for him to talk about the Master Plan 4 in conjunction with his compensation plan.
It does. We'll
So
stop making fun of you.
That is true.
And
That's
so,
actually good thinking, Herbert. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, so Master Plan 4, this is what's going to make the stock move, right? Do you guys think that is a big stock mover when he announces his comp plan and Master Plan 4? I mean, just showing a master plan does not make the stock move.
No,
but
the
if
comp
it's tied to the comp plan,
move.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the master plan. I mean, master plans that they have no clue in Wall Street, but they just think this is crazy stuff. But the comp plan is going to be very concrete, and more ambitious it is, more it can have an impact on the stock. But I mean, again, we have to think about the comp plan in two different ways. One is obviously the fact that he will reach these milestones, and he will. We all know he will. I mean, if there's one guy that has delivered in the past, it's him. It's also a strain on Tesla stock. I mean, Cern, when you did your projections, you were thinking about all this dilution. This is costing us something. It costs us something accounting-wise, and depending on how huge it is, I really want to see how they set this up. I hope this Class B shares idea could be something, because that would help us, because you can have more voting rights, but less, it's not as much share issuance. We'll see. We'll see how we get, but this comp plan is going to be, and that's the language that Wall Street understands. They understand there's a dilution for it, so that is not a good thing. But they also understand it's an ambitious goal, and they can have numbers that they can put into their, models.
Okay, thank you guys very much. So that's just a reminder, right? Shareholder meeting is on November 6th. Proxy will drop in September, but in the next 2 days, it turned out, but it was revealed in the earnings call that Elon was asking that the shareholders, us shareholders, submit a proposal to kind of propose that Tesla should invest in XAI And what Alexandra's doing right now, that in the next couple of days, at least 200-300 of you, if you hold at least just only $2,000 worth of Tesla shares, you can do this. Contact your bank, go to her X account. She has this pinned. There's a document that explains all the steps. You contact your bank, you tell them that you need this letter from them that says as proof of ownership, and then they will write you a letter that says these things, that are the number of shares, just to prove that you own it. And then you need to send that as well as a letter to Tesla, and she's got it all written out. You just have to just use the same document, change the address. It's not that hard. Get this done. You need that done by Monday.
Well, so that's a good question. Actually, there are actually two deadlines. The official deadline is July 31st. So please all try to hold that one. That means that's the letter that Tesla receives on the July 31st. That's so if you're sending it on the 30th, make sure you send it overnight. But there is an extension. It's a little bit more difficult for them to take into an account the extension. It's a week's extension until August 8th. So, I know we will have at least a couple of them in by the 31st. And if you can't make it by the 31st, send it anyway. But try to make it possible for July 31st.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alexandra. You are one of the most important people in the retail community, leading the charge here for us. Well, your lead. You charge through and we follow. Thank you very much for giving the guidance.
Shout out again to Amy. Amy has been yesterday straight away working behind the walls with me. She was the one setting up the letter. She's really great and always there to help. So that's been really good.
Yep. And then of course Jeff Lutz, the expert, and then Cern Brasher. Thank you guys. Appreciate it, everybody. See you soon.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.